Some stories are not spoken with words, but with silence. Some battles are not fought in daylight, but in the shadows of the heart. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." When a man meets a woman who stirs his soul, he does not only meet her smile, her presence, her beauty. He meets the mirror of his unconscious. And in that mirror, his shadow awakens. At first, he feels alive. Her laughter feeds his pride. Her tenderness calms the child within him. Her presence paints over the cracks of his soul. But Jung warned, the ego is fragile. It clings to what it cannot control. And when love is threatened, when silence replaces touch, the ego trembles. What begins as attraction slowly becomes obsession. What begins as affection turns into fear of loss. And in that fear, a man sees his truest wounds. Silence is not absence. Silence is a mirror. And in that mirror, he does not see the woman leaving. He sees himself unraveling. This is the story of shadow, silence, and the eternal tension between desire and detachment. A story told not in arguments, not in pleas, but in the unspoken truths of the human heart. Carl Jung taught that the shadow is not evil in itself. It is simply everything we hide, our wounds, our fears, our desires that society tells us are unacceptable. But when love awakens those hidden parts, the shadow does not stay silent. When a man loses the presence of the woman who reflected his worth, he is not only grieving her absence, he is confronting the parts of himself he always tried to escape. He feels obsession rising, though he calls it love. He feels desire burning, though he names it devotion. Yet beneath it all lies a deeper truth. He is terrified of facing the emptiness her silence revealed. Jung described this as projection. The man does not truly see the woman for who she is. He sees instead the anima, the inner feminine within his unconscious, the healer, the nurturer, the light in his darkness. He projects his hunger for wholeness onto her. And so, when she withdraws, he does not simply lose a partner. He feels as if he has lost a piece of his very soul. This is why obsession begins, not because of who she is, but because of what she symbolizes. Her silence becomes unbearable. Not because she speaks less, but because her absence forces him to listen to the voices within his own shadow. The echo of every rejection, the wound of every childhood longing, the fear of not being enough. And yet Jung reminds us, shadow is not to be feared, but faced. Obsession is not proof of love. It is proof of unhealed wounds. The man does not realize he is not chained to her, but to the parts of himself that he refuses to see. The true prison is not her silence. The true prison is his own unconscious. Carl Jung warned that the ego, though small compared to the unconscious, is stubborn. It fears rejection more than death itself. And when love is lost, it is not always the heart that suffers most. It is the fragile ego. The ego cannot accept silence. It cannot accept being ignored. It cannot accept that the story it wrote in its mind, the story of control, of possession, of pride, can be undone by a single act of detachment. And so, pride takes over. A man may tell himself he never cared. He may rewrite the story in his memory, painting her absence as meaningless. He may boast to others that her silence does not wound him. But Jung reminds us, what we deny outwardly always grows stronger within. The more fragile the ego, the louder it pretends to be strong. Behind that mask of indifference lives the wound of a child, terrified of not being enough, terrified of being abandoned again. Pride is not power. It is a shield made of paper, hiding a heart that bleeds in silence. Every night, when the world quiets, when the noise fades, the ego cannot keep up the performance. The truth returns. The emptiness remains. Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And so the man clings to illusions. He chases new lovers, distractions, victories, masks of achievement. Yet every silence brings him back to the mirror. The paradox is cruel. The more he tries to prove he does not care, the deeper his shadow binds him to the woman who left. For it was never truly about her presence. It was about the pieces of himself she revealed. And until he faces that truth, he remains trapped. Carl Jung often spoke of the anima, the feminine within the male unconscious. She is not merely a woman outside of him, but a symbol of everything he longs for within: tenderness, intuition, creativity, and love. When a real woman steps into his life, she awakens that archetype. She becomes more than herself. She becomes the mirror of his soul. Through her laughter, he tastes innocence again. Through her affection, he feels wholeness. Through her presence, he forgets his loneliness. But mirrors do not only show beauty, they reveal wounds. And so, when she turns to silence, he does not simply lose her voice. He loses the mirror that reflected his best and hid his worst. Her silence is not an absence. It is a revelation. It forces him to see the shadow he ran from, the fears he denied, the pain he buried, the need he never confessed. Some men call this cruelty, but Jung would call it truth. For a woman's silence is not punishment, it is reflection. It shows him the fracture between his ego and his soul. It shows him how dependent he was on her presence to hide his emptiness. And in that revelation lies both danger and opportunity. The danger is obsession, clinging to her as if she were his only chance at salvation. The opportunity is transformation, realizing that what she awakened in him was never hers to give, but always his to claim. Jung believed individuation, the journey to wholeness, begins when we face what we fear in ourselves. And often it is the feminine mirror that awakens that journey. Her silence, though painful, becomes the first step toward his truth, the first crack in the mask of ego, the first call of the unconscious whispering, "Look within." Carl Jung taught that true healing does not come from clinging. It comes from integrating what was lost into the self. When love slips away, many believe healing means forgetting. But forgetting is not healing. It is only silence covering a wound. Healing begins when a man dares to face the emptiness she left behind, to sit with the silence, not as an enemy, but as a teacher. In Jung's words, the goal of life is individuation, becoming whole. But wholeness does not mean perfection, nor does it mean possession of another person. It means uniting the broken parts of ourselves, the ego that craves control, the shadow that hides in shame, the anima that longs for connection. When he lets go of her, he is not betraying love. He is honoring it. For love is not a cage, it is a flame. It was never meant to be grasped and imprisoned, but to awaken light within him. To cling to her absence is to remain a prisoner of the past, but to let her go is to allow her gift to complete its purpose. She came not to stay forever, but to awaken him to himself. Letting go does not mean erasing her memory. It means recognizing that what she stirred, tenderness, passion, vulnerability, is now his responsibility to nurture. She reflected his soul to him. Now it is his task to live that truth without depending on her mirror. And here is the paradox Jung always hinted at. The moment he no longer clings, he is free. Free from obsession, free from illusion, free from the endless search outside. And in that freedom, something miraculous happens. He discovers the love he thought he lost was never hers alone. It was always within him, waiting to be found. This is individuation. This is healing. This is liberation. Not the end of love, but the beginning of the self. Healing is never a straight path. Even as he learns to let go, the shadow whispers again. For the shadow does not disappear when ignored. It waits, silent, patient, hungry. Desire stirs in the night. He sees her face in memory, her touch in dream. And the ego, fragile still, says, "Perhaps I can win her back. Perhaps she will return. Perhaps it was never over." This is the last battle, not against her, but against himself. The shadow offers illusions. It says, if you chase her, you will feel alive again. It tempts with obsession, with longing, with fantasy. But Jung reminds us, what we do not face in ourselves, we chase in others. The temptation is powerful. He may write messages he never sends. He may watch her life from afar. He may rehearse conversations in his head, all while insisting he has moved on. But every time he reaches outward, he delays the inward journey. Every time he seeks her, he abandons himself. This is why Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So what is fate here? Is it truly her? Or is it the part of him that refuses to face the wound within? The shadow's last battle is not loud. It is quiet, subtle, disguised as hope. It is the illusion that love will return if only he suffers enough, waits enough, desires enough. But the truth is harder. Love does not return by clinging. It transforms